welcome to the New Rugged Order podcast, exclusively on the Hard Knock Digital Culture channel. Now give it up to your host, people, MM2K.
Yeah, what is up, people? What is up, people? What is up, people? It is your boy, MM2K of PNTS Network. I should say Hard Knock Digital Culture. I'm sorry about that. We did a great cloud dosage where I also do content at video, but that's not where we're at. So we got to change that graphic. But we're part of PNTS Network and cloud dosage. But importantly, now Hard Knock Digital Culture. Back again with another NRO podcast. This is the show where we talk about the latest and greatest in the AAA genre-defining gaming news. Welcome to the platform, which is HNDC here, this channel on Twitch, which is the platform for all hardcore gaming, hardcore anime, hardcore martial arts entertainment. With that said, we are here to talk about some great topics today, and we're going to mix it up. We're going to do a little something different. Those topics include Xbox and its future gaming situation. We're going to talk about that in light of the new ABK news. Don't worry, I'm not going to go all the way into it and talk about the entire deal. I know people are fatigued about hearing this deal. Pretty much everybody was resigned to Microsoft getting ABK, even the harshest critics or the biggest dissenters of the deal. Everybody's been resigned to it happening. That looming in the background hasn't changed perception or hopes for many people. I won't say all, but for many people, it hasn't changed a thing for them. So we're going to talk about that, what that all means, what's going on with Xbox now. What can ABK do positively or negatively? And what is the plan to success? What are the traps out there for failure? And then I'm gonna give my overall conclusion. We're gonna present that in a different way. We're gonna do what we normally do, which is we're gonna do an episode of the capsule. However, when I do this episode of the capsule, I'm then going to follow up with a new portion called the discussion. If you're watching this live, you're going to get this discussion. You're going to be part of the discussion. If you're watching this after the fact, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to participate in the discussion, but you can still check it out. But if you want to be part of these discussions, these things that are etched in the time of HNDC, NRO podcast, and just the gaming tablet altogether, you need to be here live. And in order to be here live, we do this show normally on Fridays. And I know the time frame is kind of wishy-washy, but we're shooting for Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, beginning the week of October 1st. That's when my wife goes back to work, and I am no longer going through her radical mess of a time schedule. All right. That being said, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have the discussion, and I'm going to wait to answer all y'all questions and stuff until the discussion, because one of the things that's happened, I've been looking at the content, and thinking, we've been doing this for some time. I think we have a lot of great things to say, a lot of impactful things to say. I know it's impactful because I watch people all over YouTube take it and parse it up into their own content, and that's fine. That's okay. I'm not here for clicks or admiration or all the other stuff. We're building a network that we want to have far-reaching footprints in. But as far as me personally getting 1,000 clicks a second, that's not my thing. If something that I'm saying resonates with someone and they're like, that makes sense, and they repurpose it, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? So that just means that we're having the impact that we really want. The impact that we really want is for people to digest what we're saying, relate to it, and help cascade it. So, but I've been thinking about that, like the effectiveness of even that part. And I think a lot of it is affected when I'm not on schedule with how we present the content. So what I'm going to do from here on out with all these NRO podcasts are we're going to do our quick high shout outs. I'll gingerly, say something to the introductory comments and stuff like that. But I'm going to address everything in full detail once we get past the capsule, to ensure that I'm not rambling on and on and on, because the capsule is only set to be a 5-10 minute video at most. To make sure that I'm not rambling on and on for an hour or so as typical before you guys get to interact with me, the capsule is going to be 5-10 minutes. And then after the capsule, we go on to the discussion. That's going to be the ebb and flow from here on out. All right. Cool. Think it makes the show flow better, gives us some consistency, even if we can't have consistency in the schedule for another week and a half. It gives us some consistency once within the show once it started. That being said, let's do this. Again, this is episode 33. And the topics are Xbox and its gaming future, first party versus second party / third party exclusives in the Division 3. We're going to get into all that today. Let us know how our audio sounds if you're watching this live, how everything is going. We made some tweaks and some adjustments, hopefully for the better. And we just want to make sure that they haven't done the opposite. All right. Couple of bill paying things I got to do first. First and foremost, let's go here. This is the website that hosts all of the PNTS Network family of content. This hub, Hard Knock Digital Culture, is part of the PNTS Network. All right. And if you want to check out all of our content, definitely go to pntsnetwork.com. You'll see our various news articles. You'll see videos, cloud dosage as well. You'll see NRO stuff right here. That's awesome, right? My Starfield gameplays and videos and stuff like that. And if you're looking for me to check out all of this stuff from all of our contributors, but if you're looking for me directly, you're like, look, I need more MM2K. Go over to members, click on MM2K Gaming, and this is my page. And look here on this page. Oh my gosh, that's actually us right now. You can watch the live stream here on Twitch from the website. You can also check out all the MM2K Gaming YouTube videos and also get direct links to wherever I may opine. Okay? Now that we've done that, let's get right into business. We're going to do our video. It's called The Capsule, and you get to be with me live as I record it. Hopefully I don't mess up and have to redo it. But you're going to be with us live. And the topic is Xbox's future in gaming. Just as a super quick precursor, we've seen what's going on with ABK, but that doesn't supersede in entirety the leaks. It doesn't even supersede it at all. I think if you're not an overzealous fanboy, if you're really trying to look at this critically, regardless of your bias, everybody fell on the realm of this deal is going through. You know what I'm saying? Now, whether you wanted to go through or not is a whole different kit and caboodle, and it starts the realm of a very interesting discussion. But nonetheless, again, unless you were extremely biased and you're just a fanboy extraordinaire, you knew this deal was going through. If you were paying attention to the news, I'll put it like that. If you weren't paying attention to the news and the last thing you happened to see was negative towards the deal going through, then I can understand you being misled. But all things point to the deal going through. Everything's not etched and written in stone, but CMA has given everything but their approval today. But that still doesn't supersede the concerning stuff that we heard via the leaks. It just makes things slightly less grim. And we're going to talk about that. Why it's slightly less grim and why this isn't the radical shakeup that will change everything forever off the bat. No. Why? because this stuff that they're about to obtain still has to be managed. And what I think this stuff does is it creates a great cushion if they continue to miss these milestones, because having ABK doesn't guarantee that you make these milestones all of a sudden. What having ABK does is give you fanboy fodder if you're an Xbox enthusiast, so you can say, oh, you know, PlayStation, they're number 2, but they might not be number 2 for long. Like, you'll be creeping right behind them in gaming revenue now. That's the only thing that this guarantees. And that's guaranteed off the back of Call of Duty. If one title, if one franchise, Call of Duty, craps the bed, this is all for naught. That's why, but it's still not an excuse. Within the studios that are going to be obtained, the development talent, the leadership, there is more than enough now for Microsoft to crank out hit after hit after hit. They can do it now with no excuses. They could have done it before, really, but there are no excuses now. Nothing I want to hear. Nothing feasible at all. It's not going to happen overnight, but granted, give them a couple years. If they're managing this properly, making the correct progress, 2, maybe 3 years, Microsoft should begin to be cranking out hit after hit after hit. If they can't reach milestones, if they can't do that, there's nothing else that can be said. And there can no longer be. Like, there really wasn't an excuse before. It's just that, unfortunately, you had ignorant government officials and judges. You've had poorly communicative regulators that couldn't etch in why a lot of this, wine and cheese that Microsoft was serving was bullpucky. We can't compete because PlayStation. Satya Nadella's writing checks for $8 billion, $60 billion, now $75 billion by the time this deal finally closes. That's never happened in the history of Xbox before. And with less resources, Xbox 360 was able to come in and snatch PlayStation's lunch and tell them to take a hike for that generation. All you newbies that are new to this stuff, that fall for this rhetoric, y'all can fall for this trash. We don't here at Hard Knock Digital Culture. So we're putting everything out on the table. We are understanding the powerhouse of resources that come with the ABK deal. And what that means there's no more excuses. So with all that rhetoric, me going off, I see you Cold Blood in the chat. Shout out to you, good brother. Let's now dive into our video, The Capsule. In order for me to do that, I got to do this. I got to stop the music, bring it back. And then we go here. It goes blank. Then I change this to say The Capsule. You get to watch the sausage being made, as they say. All right, and then I got to change this to HNDC, because that is the brand within the PNTS network that sponsors this content, The Capsule. All right. With that being said, let's get up our script. Let's get going. All right. In 3, 2, 1. What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? It is your boy, MM2K of PNTS Network and Hard Knock Digital Culture, back again with another episode of The Capsule. This is where we take small snippets and put it into a smaller consumable conversation about the latest and greatest and AAA genre-defining gaming news. And boy, do we have a doozy for you today. Upon the heels of the ABK deal getting the provisional approval from the CMA finally, our video today is titled The Future of Xbox, Activision Blizzard Acquisition and Critical Decisions Ahead. But before we get into all that, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and rock those bells for notifications, please, so you know when we're dropping these doses. We appreciate all of y'all straight up. All right, let's get into it. Welcome back, gamers and tech enthusiasts, to another exciting episode of The Capsule. Today, we've got a blockbuster topic for you, one that's been making headlines across the gaming world. We'll be delving deep into the recent developments surrounding Xbox and Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. But first, let's rewind a bit and discuss how Xbox got to this pivotal moment. And we're going to do that by bringing out different segments, all right? So segment one we're going to be talking about Xbox's missed milestones. This is critical because this was key. This was a key talking point that they brought up in the courts of why this deal was needed for them, why it was imperative for courts and regulators to approve this deal because of their missed milestones. So court documents have revealed that Xbox has been missing the mark on its milestones. From the recent news articles, we can see that Xbox's performance has been underwhelming by their own admission. Phil Spencer, the Xbox CEO, has openly admitted to failing to compete effectively with Sony over the past 2 decades. Xbox Game Pass, while initially successful, seems to be slowing down, and the launch of Redfall disappointed many gamers. The financial model of Game Pass is also a point of contention, with Microsoft acknowledging that it's impacting sales. Now, let's talk about the implications of these failures and how the acquisition of Activision Blizzard could be the game changer Xbox needs. And we're going to do that in section 2. Xbox's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard King for a whopping $68 billion, which may be adjusted now to $75 billion, is nothing short of monumental. It could provide Xbox with the firepower it needs to regain lost ground. Activision Blizzard brings an impressive portfolio of iconic franchises like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Diablo. These titles have the potential to bolster Xbox's gaming ecosystem and attract millions of new players. But, and this is a big but, the success of this acquisition hinges on how Microsoft manages these franchises and these newfound resources. If handled right, it could be a game changer. But if managed poorly, it could spell disaster. And that's a segue to section 3. The risk of mishandling Activision Blizzard. One major concern is how Microsoft will handle the beloved Call of Duty franchise. Activision has already lost millions of players in 2023, and if Xbox mishandles the juggernaut of a franchise, it could backfire spectacularly. Gamers are fiercely loyal to Call of Duty, and any misstep could lead to an even bigger or just all-around mass exodus. And they got to be cognizant of that because there's a lot of buzz out there about Ubisoft's X-Defiant. So the question is, how will Xbox navigate this treacherous terrain and ensure that their newfound treasure doesn't turn into liabilities? That leads us into section 4, the potential fallout. Now, court documents suggest that Xbox might consider exiting the gaming business by 2027 if things don't improve. Imagine a gaming world without Xbox. The implications for the industry and gamers could be massive. Xbox has been a key player for decades, and its absence could reshape the entire landscape. But before we dive into doomsday scenarios, let's consider a different approach. What if Xbox focuses on its core strengths and invests in creating top-notch content once again? That takes us to section 5, the path to success. In our final segment, we explore an argument that calls for a shift in Xbox's strategy. Perhaps it's time for Microsoft to prioritize creating exceptional games over packing everything into a subscription service. Restricting some of their best content to purchase only for a period of time could build excitement and drive sales. Again, and that'll offset their admitted cannibalization of sales that, if you look at the dots and connect them properly, is leading to them missing milestones, financial milestones more or less. Additionally, and this is the biggest point I want to drive home here. Additionally, there's the question of leadership. All right. Does Xbox need a change at the top to ensure they have the right people to curate and manage top-notch content? Phil Spencer, while passionate, there is no doubt about that he's passionate about gaming, has presided over a period of mixed results. So that, my friends, now brings us to our conclusion. There you have it, folks. The Xbox and Microsoft saga is more thrilling and complex than ever. The acquisition of Activision Blizzard King is a double-edged sword that could either propel Xbox to new heights or lead to its downfall. Can you imagine a $75 billion bust? That said, we don't know. Could be a $75 billion parachute to the promised land. Time will tell. As gamers, though, we can only hope for the former and eagerly anticipate, or the latter and eagerly anticipate the future of gaming. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Xbox and its uncertain future. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes of Gaming Unveiled. And until next time, happy gaming and have a wonderful gaming day. Peace. All right, that's the video, folks. We're going to talk about it. Give me 1 second. All right, people, sorry about that. We are back. So let's talk about this on the back end. We got Cold Blood Sensei. He says, hopefully Call of Duty crashes and burns. I want to see the epic meltdown that will ensue from that. That's a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about that. And let's do that right now. Let's go into the video that we just created, and let's see here. And let's do what we're going to call now the discussion. And while we do that, let's just make sure that everybody's aware as they're coming to the podcast, what part of the podcast that we're in. We are in the discussion part in regards to Xbox's future. So I want to do a recap. We're going to do a recap of each section. If you guys remember, section 1 was Xbox's missed milestones. And let's get your thoughts on this. Okay, so again, to recap the missed milestones, we did a detailed, we did a look at Xbox's reported failures as per the court documents. We know those failures include reaching Game Pass milestones. There was articles out there from gamesindustry.biz. And if anybody's interested in seeing the resources that we have for this, I have resources and links to every show that I do. Just hit me up. But there were gamesindustry.biz articles that, the one in particular, well, there were two that talked about Xbox changing its tune on Game Pass. You know, we never thought that Game Pass was the flagship. It's just an option, right? Remember when Phil was doing that and said it only made up 15% of the revenue at most. You know, I remember when they changed their tune about Game Pass because it had hit a wall and it was only seeing some growth on PC, right? We also want to talk about Xbox's Phil Spencer's admission of competitive struggles against Sony. In our video, we noted that what Phil Spencer said was that Xbox has failed to compete with Sony for 20 years. That's a flat out mistruth. We put it in there because he said it. What I should have now, in hindsight, what I should have did is put the quote in there. But he said it, that Microsoft has not been able to compete with Sony for 20 years. That's a lie. People can debate me all they want about this. I don't care. Microsoft won the 7th generation. If you want to go to like 6-7 years after the fact, after the generation was done and people had already moved on, and say, but the PlayStation 3 ended up selling more consoles. No. The purpose of selling consoles is to sell software. That's what this is all about. The money isn't made in the sale of the console. I mean, it's good if you make money off the sale of your consoles, which PlayStation does. That's an added bonus. But you're not selling the console just for it to sit, because that's just a one-time nominal fee or nominal piece of revenue that you get. The thing that you make money on that makes this lucrative is the software, is the games. Microsoft won the 7th generation because it destroyed the PlayStation 3 in the number of games that it sold. That's despite whether you want to play, you know, akin to what Cold Blood Sensei may feel, that PlayStation 3 had the better games, or you want to play akin to what I may feel, that the 360 had the better games. It doesn't matter. That part of it is subjective. What is not subjective is the fact that they sold more software. Xbox won the 7th generation. Xbox was the de facto console to get, even with the red ring of death. That just tells you how storied that console was that generation. People's consoles broke. They were so defective consoles. 60% of them were defective. And it still continued to outsell PlayStation in software. The only thing that helped PlayStation catch up is that the last 2 years of the generation, Xbox really was using the 360 as testing grounds for the Xbox One. So they really didn't put any heart or any soul into the games that are being delivered. Around that time too, that's when Phil Spencer became the head of studios. Look at the games that Phil Spencer delivered as the head of studios, and you'll see a common tell: Halo, Gears, and Forza. Look at the years before Phil Spencer took over, and look at the prestige and the quality of the games that were coming to the 360 before Phil Spencer took over as head of studios. The difference is astronomical. Prior, we were getting games like BioShock, Mass Effect, publishing deals for Fallout, and you name it. Once Phil took over as head of studios, Halo, Gears, and Forza. That's it. But that was and that wasn't a problem for Donnie Dino because they were focusing on how to make these Connect games. They doubled down on that, and it was a losing bet. They went all in on it, and it was a losing bet for Donnie D's regime. And he was also a Steve Ballmer guy, so when Satya took over, he had to go. That being said, Xbox, those last 2 years of that generation, they were just using it as testing grounds for the Xbox One and the Kinect 2.0. PlayStation, on the other hand, used those last 2 to 3 years as the revamp of the PlayStation brand to forget about the cell processor and the microcomputing and controlling the microwave in the oven and fully rebounding from the other OS debacle and getting solely back into being the premier place to game. They used the last 2 or 3 years of the PlayStation 3 generation for that. And the launch of both systems were the culmination of what their focus was. But don't be confused. Xbox went from losing 29 million to 150 million in consoles and homes to running neck and neck with PlayStation and outselling them in software, which is the main reason why you're doing the business. Xbox One. It's not even up for debate. There are some things that are up for interpretation. This isn't. You only have the most critical of zealots or those that are too young to know the history that are listening to these zealots that think otherwise. So I said all that not to sit there and pound my chest over the 360, but to say that Phil, nobody at Xbox, nobody, Aaron Greensberg or nobody feels like that the Xbox lost the 360 generation. And even though he did that because that was the testimony that he gave for the current bigger cause right now, I can imagine those long-term people cringed when they heard that. It was baloney. That baloney's not going to work anymore. You got what you wanted. You said in order for you to compete, you needed Activision Blizzard. Now you have them. The reality of it, when we're not talking to the ignorant judges and stuff that know nothing about gaming, when you deal with the gaming public, now you have to deal with the fact that we know better. You had more resources than you needed to compete with Sony. You just didn't know how to manage them. Now you have more than enough resources to compete with Sony and beyond. Let's see what you do. There are no more excuses. All right. We also talked about in that first section, the Redfall launch was a disappointment and its impact on the Xbox's image. And Starfield, that was meant to be a palate cleanser to that, didn't fully do that. I don't think. I mean, you look at the general consensus on the game, it's mildly positive, very mildly positive. When you start hitting in the 70 territory, it's considered mildly positive. It's like that. I'm not even talking about Metacritic. I'm talking about with gamers. When you look what other gamers are saying about the game, it's mildly positive. And then with all this happening, with Xbox missing milestones and all that stuff, the threat of Xbox exiting the game business if Game Pass subscriptions don't increase. All this is to make their flagship to make their flagship entity Game Pass grow. Like, it doesn't matter if now their revenue went from 8 billion behind PlayStation to only being a billion behind PlayStation. If PlayStation is still reaching more gamers than you are losing. And if you are still losing, like the first couple of years, now that they have ABK, they might buffer it out a little bit more. I think now, instead of saying if we don't meet these milestones by 2027, they might push it forward a little bit to 2028, 2029. But if you still, now that you have Activision Blizzard, those actual milestone numbers have to go up. Like, what did they say? They were in 100, they expected to be in 100 million homes by the beginning of next gen. Next gen for them starts at 2028. I would expect that number to go up to 110 million, 120 million. You spent $75 billion for this company. Now you have Call of Duty Mobile, right? Let's look that up. How many players on Call of Duty Mobile? How many gamers on Call of Duty Mobile? Okay, so that's 59. It's an average monthly players. Last 30 days were 60 million. You got 60 million players that are now being added because of Call of Duty Mobile. Are you now going to merge Game Pass with Call of Duty Mobile to up Game Pass? I don't know. Because just the mobile business is kind of separate from this. Because we're talking about what works with Game Pass. I don't know if you throw Call of Duty Mobile on Game Pass, then automatically integrate those numbers. Right? Just like it's like not every mobile game that's distributed by Microsoft or whatever counts towards this number. That's kind of like separate. But I think the desire is for Game Pass to be on 100 million, have 100 million active users. How you gonna do that? How is Game Pass gonna have 100 million active users by 2027? Or even 2029? I don't know. That being said, let's also look and see what's going on here. So those, and that's it for section 1. That's where we're at. Let's get your thoughts in the chat about the pitfalls that they've had as far as reaching their milestones. Internet of Games, good to see you, good brother. As always, IOG, I gotta get your tag for Twitch again, because your tag is a little different. So when I try to pull you up on Twitter, it's hard for me to do that. Those that routinely come here, I usually send them a message to know when I'm about to go live. So let me know what your internet tag is, and I'll keep a mark of it. Cold Blood Sensei says paying for online in the PlayStation 360 era was out of question, so PlayStation wins on. Nah, look what happened. Because the PlayStation didn't have a more secure infrastructure that made you pay for online access, look what happened. Anonymous. That's all I got to say. And look what they end up doing that same generation. So now that's debunked. The PlayStation debunks that themselves. And what they went through and what they end up doing on the back end of that, they had to charge. So my PS3 from 2008 is still alive while my friend had to buy 5 Xboxes. Laugh out loud. That's what I said, during that generation. Now you talking about 5 years after. Yeah, PlayStation 3 had a longer shelf life, but the battle was during the generation. We don't sit there and say, yeah, the 9th generation PlayStation 3 is kicking Xbox 360's ass. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Console is a very interesting name. The word phrase console has referred to the point at which the user accesses the computer. One computer could have many consoles. This is why I frame this period the second mainframe revolution. Because I don't care. I didn't pay for 8 years online. I'm good. That's the biggest win of the era. And with Xbox, you didn't necessarily have to pay as well. I mean, you could have got online for free. You could have streamed stuff for free. In order for you to play online games, which, yeah, well, outside of Call of Duty. No. During the 360 era, online play was big because of multiplayer. But yeah, the PlayStation servers were so out of whack and just so vulnerable that, you know, everybody didn't trust it, and they went to the 360. As an empire doesn't thrive, and IOG says, by its soldiers and citizens of the empire. It thrives by its workers. No matter how many studios you conquer, no matter how much wealth you give to their kings, success comes from the health and happiness of the workers of the empire. And if these devs don't like their conqueror, the games will be media. No, that's a great point. If there's been talk about Exodus already in Lumina Deal. Xbox's management style has already been under the microscope and under fire. Look, I'll tell you this. When the people from 343 Studios left, and I can't remember what game they went to go make, I had early access and I played the game. I played the beta of the game. And for you to leave making Halo, for what they left to make, that's like me being a top exec in the stock market and then me just one day walking out and going to work at a 7-Eleven or at a gas station. Things must have been so bad for me as a broker that I just took off a 3-piece suit, ripped off my tie, and headed for the closest Quickie Link or Quickie Mart. No. That's when I looked at that game, and this game it wasn't a game that these veterans left and put together and was like, all right, this is our vision, and what they were putting together just was porous. No. These veterans from 343 went to make and develop a game that was already being established and already being developed for. And what they left for from where they came from was the equivalent leaving the stock market and going to Quickie Mart to pump gas. Like, I don't think any other studio in that scenario is looking at that game and saying, yeah, this is going to solidify my future. I got a future here at 343, but nah, this is going to be better. That game ain't screaming sales at all. So, yeah, Microsoft is not known for developing, the greatest atmosphere. And that's because you have this guy, Phil and company, and Matt Booty and them, that are in charge, but they're not great overseers. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know how to check the temperature. And they go to these studios and they talk to these people, and they're talking to the wrong people, apparently. That's why Redfall even got launched or released. They just don't know what they're doing from a management level to properly handle high quality content. So to IOG's point, even if they do get all these resources, if these companies are pulling the wool over Microsoft's eyes, getting all this money to do this and do that, and it's not reaching milestones, and then the leadership just blames the workers and create this horrible atmosphere for the workers, and Phil and them aren't the wiser because they don't find nothing out until Jason Schreier tells them what's going on under their own roof. You know what I mean? Until that happens, as long as that keeps happening, the content is doomed. There is no way you should look at, again, don't get me wrong. You can't call Starfield a flop, regardless of how good it may actually be generally. You can't call Starfield a flop. 10 million players, any game developer would love to have 10 million players even try their game. So it's not a flop. But I think 10 million players on its own don't tell us if Starfield is the success that it was hyped up to be. Like when you talk game of the generation, you're talking, look, the tell all be all is money. Don't let these people fool you. They're not scientists that are doing this, to take one for the team. These are Fortune 500 companies where the official thing that drives them, the numero uno thing that drives them, is how much money they are making for their investors. There's nothing more important to them than that. I don't care what propaganda somebody gets up on the mic and says, yeah, we care about you. I don't care what t-shirt and Vans shoes or Crocs someone wears on stage to make them to try to normalize themselves. The numero uno job is to make money. Now, let me give you a prime example. People think Phil Spencer is the Dalai Lama of gaming. Oh, he's so nice and he's so this. And Phil is passionate. And I don't see Phil as a discourteous guy, but he's just as much of an executive monster as everyone else. All you got to do is read those emails and see where he does not dismiss or does not turn away from a scenario where Nintendo is hostily took over. He says, and I'm paraphrasing, but if such and such and such and such things happen and that presents itself, I'm pretty much all for it. Yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't make us look good, but now again, I've sent corporate emails of that level to the biggest execs in the world. If I'm trying to say, something would have, a business would be lucrative business-wise in certain regards, but it's too bad for a reputational risk. You don't sculpt it like that. A more appropriate response, if you're trying to shy away from something like that, is like, you would say it in reverse. Even though having something like Nintendo in our back pocket and obtaining them through whatever means necessary would do a lot for a bottom line, the reputational risk is just too great. So it's an interesting thing to dissect and look at. But as far as moving forward with it, and moving forward of acquiring Nintendo at that juncture, let's walk past that discussion. I just came off with that from the top of my head, from doing this for 25 plus years. Phil said it in reverse. Even though it would make us look bad, but career changing and all this other stuff, and we got to do it. We got to do it. If the opportunity presents itself, hey, I'm not discouraging looking into it further. And I'm paraphrasing. I'm all over the place with that. But that's basically the essence of what he was saying. Again, the former of what I said is the appropriate response if I'm saying, look, I fully recognize that if we're able to achieve this, even hostily, it helps out our bottom line. But in reverse, it looks bad and it seriously bloats our reputational risk. So let's move on. Let's carry on. What else do we got on the docket here? So I completely concur with what IOG is saying. Xbox has a lot to address in its management, in its overseeing of its overseers. We'll see. But, for a game like Starfield to be the palate cleanser to Redfall, I think all that hype, all that culmination of hype, it was bound to have a lot of players. Nobody was down there. I even know, talking behind the scenes to a lot of my friends that are big Xbox enthusiasts, I said, look, man, this thing is going to do gangbusters at the very least on PC. It might do well on consoles as well. But the real deal is going to be on PC. The real usership will be on PC. That being said, we got to see what the financial draw is from this. How many more, not how many current, how many more Game Pass subscribers did this game create? How many of them are going to systemically stay on the system for a quarter? Because you can't sit, there was 5 million Game Pass subscribers the month that Starfield came aboard. Oh, whoa, that's great. How many are still there the following month? 20,000? No. 2,000? No, literally 20. Then in essence, those 5 million people that played Game Pass, or that got Game Pass to play it, literally played anything from $10 to $15 to finagle Starfield, a $70 game. To where even though you would have had PlayStation gamers go, oh, this game is mid or whatever, they would have been willing, if this game would have been fully multiplied, they would have been willing to pay $70 for the game. And you would have gotten, 70% of that 70. Meaning you would have got more money. That's what this is all about. What Microsoft is saying with this business, it's a business model. Let's not get this twisted. This is not a humanitarian campaign. Don't think that Xbox is losing money to benefit you. They're doing something called loss leading. Do the research. Get Rich Dad, Poor Dad to understand business. Please, Robert T. Kawasaki, get that book. I read it in my 20s. It's helped me out in my tenure. Get Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Read that book. Understand the fundamentals of business first and foremost. Then pick up Blood, Sweat, and Pixels and understand how business relates to the business of gaming. Then come back and talk to me. This is not a humanitarian effort. This is just a different business model, meaning I, Phil Spencer, along with Satya Nadella, feel like that the business is gravitating towards cloud activity and subscription services. We feel that we can change the dynamic of how money is made in gaming. We can get past the 300 million threshold when it comes to the atypical console ecosystem. We can blow that wide open, and we can do that through cloud technology and subscription services. Now, what they do is to play the rope-a-dope game with you, the gamer, who's out there on Twitter with your Twitter fingers, and to the market, without giving them too much to make them look bad, is they'll throw out estimations of people play. They're throwing you out random estimation numbers. Those are not the eternal numbers that they're using to determine whether they're successful. The only numbers that matter at the end of the day, let me show you. Let me go back to my resource. And for anybody that has questions, MM2K, where did you come up with that? Where did you get this from? Why are you saying this? All you got to do is hit me up, and I'll give you access to any of my links. Let's pull this up. I want this article right here. I got over, Jesus Christ, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 articles that I looked up for this very topic alone. Not just for this topic. Let's go here. That's why I said we put in work. I want to change the format so this information spreads even more. Y'all don't have to have the same taste that I have in gaming. That's just that's the auxiliary piece. The main piece is understand what's going on, regardless if you want it to happen or not. Understand what's going on, so you know how to execute your best plan of action forward. This is an article from GameIndustry.biz that talks about Xbox's change in tone on Game Pass. This is when Phil Spencer went out to different publications and tried to downplay Game Pass. He says the firm's latest rhetoric around PC and mobile and subscriptions set the scene for why it feels the Activision Blizzard acquisition would be positive for the industry. All right. So he says Microsoft's latest financials and Phil Spencer's subsequent comments during the Wall Street Journal live event felt like a shift in tone. The big takeaway from some is how Microsoft for the second quarter running failed to hit its targets around Game Pass subscription growth. This isn't something from 2019 or, even 220 or even 221. This is from November 2022, not even a full year ago. I want to open this in a new tab and I want to show you this. And this is the article. Microsoft Game Pass falls short of targets. Firm misses projections by 45%. Spencer confirms that the service makes up 15% of gaming revenues. These are the only reports that matter. They're going to come out with stuff monthly or whatever, but it's those quarterly projections to where they define or they compare what they did to what they did last quarter, and then also compare this quarter to the same time frame a year ago. Those show growth. In between those measurements, they're going to throw things like number of players this and number of hours logged in that. None of that matters. These people have gaming revenue projections per their business model. The Game Pass business model is simply, we feel like that instead of doing it the traditionalist way, we have a nuanced, future-proof way that's based upon different technologies and subscription services. That's it. And based upon that, we're going to make more money. They're not making more money, so what they do is in these random situations like Starfield, possibly Starfield could be a serious revenue bringer. We don't know, but I'm going to use Starfield as an example in the scenario that it isn't. They use these random situations like Starfield to talk about hours logged, because until the financials for the quarter officially come in, that's what keeps people off their ass. But that's why I don't report on these monthly numbers. I wait till the quarterly and the annual numbers come out, because that's my field. That's what I get. If you are loss leading because you're trying to build up a business model that hasn't matured yet, that's fine. But proof that a maturation is occurring is you are to incrementally make money unless there's something catastrophically at the foundation of you losing the money. So if Game Pass is your pathway to success, it doesn't have to bring you a whole bunch of money, but it has to improve, not constantly losing money, as Game Pass was quarter after quarter after quarter, to where they're doing what? Changing their tone. So what I need to see is the quarter of activity that meshes in with Starfield. If Starfield had, like, for instance, 5 million new Game Pass subscribers, that's the beginning of something possibly good. But how many of those Game Pass subscribers stayed? And how many of them stayed? Because if they didn't stay, if after playing Game Pass, which we're seeing at the tunes of like around 30%, people are like, you know what? I don't even like this game. We don't know how many of the 70% that said, I like it a lot, enough to stay on Game Pass. But you got 30% off the bat that are telling you, I don't even like this game, that tried it. So you know they're going, especially if they're new. I think it's reasonable to surmise at this point, per the data that we have, it's reasonable to surmise and keep an eye on. I wouldn't say completely conject, but keep an eye on and surmise that 30% of any new Game Pass subscriber, if they came aboard for Starfield, you can automatically assume that third is bouncing after Starfield. Now, you may have some situations where some of them, where Starfield was like the gateway drug to them seeing other things on Game Pass. I don't know what, because I'm going to be honest with you, even though Starfield isn't generally the game it was hyped up to be, it's excuse me, sorry about that. As far as I'm concerned, it's still the best thing on Game Pass. I think it's worth checking out. I think it's worth playing. But a lot of people are not going to like it. I'm not going to say most. We can't even say half, because right now, most people like it. But how much are they going to like it? Are they going to say, you know what, this Game Pass thing is cool, so therefore I'll just stick with Game Pass and I'll stay with it another month, and maybe I'll finish Starfield in month 2 and then I'm leaving? Or, yeah, I like it, but not that much. It was a cool experience, but I'm out. And so they only calculated 1 month. Those, my friends, are what you call a bubble. Not sustained success, just temporary success. Game Pass is built on the business model that Sachi and Phil are presenting is built upon people trying the service and keeping it, building it. If you handle the subscription service like an a la carte purchase, I only came here for this one game, I experienced that one game, I'm out, then your introduction to the subscription service was a failure. It was a failure. They don't want you treating the subscription service like a one-off sale. Why? Because they would prefer you pay the full price for the game for the one-off sale. But if that's how you're interacting with Game Pass, they are losing out. So I just want to make that abundantly clear. While I'm not just being negative, I'm looking at this from a fiduciary standpoint. And I'm not just sitting there being a fan or a hater or whatever. You got to look at this fiscally. Microsoft can't afford for your interaction with Starfield to simply be, oh, I played the game, I finessed it for $15, now I'm out. They need you to either then say, all right, this was my gateway to a service that I feel like is worth it, so I'm going to stay with it for the most part. Or if you did go to Starfield, for primarily Starfield, you like the game enough to say, okay, maybe Game Pass isn't for me, but I like this game. So now I'm going to go buy the game. I don't see that. I don't see that. Well, I don't see that on the PC side, and I think the PC side is probably the biggest audience here. Because we saw some preliminary numbers. Now, this doesn't speak to September. We saw some preliminary numbers in August. And we saw that the Xbox Series S, the Xbox Series consoles went up 75% in sales. Now, September isn't over yet. We don't know what the sales were like in September, but I'm thinking anybody that was interested in Starfield, their biggest hype moment was that week or so where it was talked about. It was the only thing talked about in Twitter. And I think that would have been the biggest time frame that you would have seen people buy the console. Because there's no indications anywhere after Starfield release that there was a serious influx in sales on the console. So I think the biggest influx would have came in advance. And if that biggest influx came in advance, I don't know. So that's why I say anytime you get 10 million subscribers, I mean, that's 10 million plays on a game, that's a lot of exposure that I think any developer would want. But what this game was supposed to represent, a complete turnaround in the looking at the Xbox brand and utilization of the Game Pass model, I don't know if it did that. And if it didn't do that, then they need more. IOG says it's not a flop and it has a good potential on the PC scene, but I'm not sure it exudes love and creative. Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't have put it any better. You can deny it however you much want. I was very satisfied with my PlayStation 3, probably my most played console of all time. Hey, look, man, if you enjoyed your PlayStation 3 cold blood, that's what's up, bro. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at anybody that liked your PlayStation 3. I'm just talking about general consensus. I know people, look, when Xbox first came on the scene, cold blood, with the OG Xbox, people laughed. What is this trash? That were like, I know serious PlayStation gamers, they refused to play Halo. My cousins were them. I remember I had the OG Xbox. I tried to bring it up. Man, they tried to throw my Xbox. Literally, I'm not lying. I tried to bring my OG Xbox over to my cousin's house, and he tried to throw my Xbox across the room. He said, man, get that out of here, man. Somebody ain't playing this trash. We PlayStation over here. Literally, like for real. That same cousin, I'll never forget. I want to say 2 months after the Xbox 360 launched. No. I'm lying. About 6 months after it launched. I'm in downtown Pittsburgh, going to like electronics store, trying, buying some games. And that same cousin walked out of the store and I was like, yo, what you doing down here, bro? It's like, you don't come downtown. What's going on with you? He said, man, I've been everywhere trying to find an Xbox 360 and they sold out. I said, excuse me? He said, I've been trying to go everywhere to find a 360 and they sold. I said, you getting a 360? He said, yeah, man. He said, man, I played that 360 over my boy's house. That 360 is the truth. You got any ideas, cuzzo? And I gave him some ideas and he went about his business. So what I'm saying, cold blood, is I'm not mad at you if you liked your PlayStation 3. I'm just saying the general consensus was, even from the most staunchest PlayStation people, that the 360 was the platform to go to, and a lot of them converted over. Now, I'm going to say this, that the reason why the Xbox One and the Xbox Series generation is doing so poorly in the same regards is because a lot of those 360, most of those 360 people, bro, because you got to keep it jiggy here. Y'all got to think about this, and really it's just hit me. I didn't even realize this until I'm talking it out with y'all. Most of those 360 people were who? Most of those if you do the math, there was 150 million PlayStation 2s and only 29 million Xboxes, OG Xboxes in the 6th generation. Then in the 7th generation, PlayStation 3 versus Xbox 360, there were 86 and 86 by the time the generation. So that's what, 172 million. That's almost 180 million. 172 million consoles were sold by the time those two generations ended. So you still have the 180 million number, short about 8 million or 7, whatever. You still have the 180 million that were represented in the previous generation, still around the 2nd generation. Guess what happened? They, instead of the flock of them all going to PlayStation again, 60 million of them left PlayStation and came to Xbox. $60 million of them left PlayStation and came to Xbox. So what if that is the case, which we're now calculating and figuring out now that I think nobody really thought about, the majority of gamers that made Xbox what it is were who? PlayStation gamers. That's why the Xbox One generation and the Xbox Series generation, they can't get any traction. Why? Because in the 360 generation, they did what they needed to do to break up the market. How do you break up the market? You come out with fire ass exclusive content, right? And you put forth innovation that makes your gaming experience. You follow through and you execute on innovation that makes your gaming experience heightened. That's what the 360 did. The 360 not only had the most sought after exclusives that generation, but then it brought the multimedia aspect of it. It had the best secure online service, even though you had to pay for it. But everybody was playing online. That was the hottest thing. You got to online play is best on Xbox. That was the new innovation that heightened people's gaming experience, was online play. Granted, you could do it on PlayStation, but it just wasn't the same. So it's not that Xbox gamers unilaterally grew on their own. I don't think people realize this. When you do the math, when you crunch the numbers, the people that made Xbox what it is, as far as even competitive, they were PlayStation people. They were PlayStation people like my cousin, who just the previous gen was picking up my big old Xbox and was ready to launch it across the room when I brought it over one day. Xbox did so much to gravitate to those people that it changed the game. What this current Xbox is doing is, instead of recognizing that formula or even wanting to adapt to that formula, they said, hell, let PlayStation have those people. We're going to start tapping into other places and start bringing in other people that normally don't game on these type of ecosystems. And guess what? As of today, it's not working. How do we know it's not working? Because they are now back. It took PlayStation to have a serious supply restraint, one way more severe than Xbox's, for Xbox to compete back and forth in sales. Now that the supply restraint is gone for PlayStation, Xbox hasn't won a generation. It's back to the Xbox One generation, where PlayStation people pretty much just abandoned the platform again and went back to play. Said, oh, this thing that we thought was so new and exciting and so invigorating that Xbox was leading, they've completely abandoned it. Let's go back to PlayStation. And it's that disappointment. Because if you're going to leave PlayStation had a storied history. Even back then, 2 generations in a row, they decimated the market. So if you have an exodus of 60 million gamers, that means that those gamers are not all zealots and fanboys. They're open to more granular, better, eye-popping experiences. But they have to include these things. And Xbox's current strategy doesn't include those things. Why? Because they just said, forget them. PlayStation can have them. We're going to go into the outer regions. And it's not working. Because when you go into the outer regions, you have to convince people to leave their traditional norms to go and do something new. Why are they going to do that when the thing you want to switch them to is not better than the experience for them that they already have? Why would they do it? Cloud gaming, for instance. Why would I go get on Xbox Cloud Gaming if my Xbox Series S or my Xbox One S feels and plays better than that? Why? That is the Achilles heel, not only the games, but that is the Achilles heel of this generation for Xbox and their management. They don't execute on their deliverables, whether it's milestones, whether it's fiduciary milestones, or whether it's execution of the tech. It was that combination of the execution of the tech and the badass games that purged those 60 million PlayStation people. Until they learn, until they figure out, until they know what they don't know, you can't look at this ABK deal and says this fixes everything. You just can't. PlayStation gamers, that's 60 million. Why would they leave PlayStation? Even though Call of Duty is on Game Pass, why would they leave PlayStation to play Call of Duty? They already tried Xbox. Xbox did give them something exciting. And then it did the okie doke on them. They feel betrayed. A lot of them feel betrayed. That's why they go so hard against Xbox. You made me leave my ecosystem. Left my friends. I mean, there's others that left with me. I trusted you. For you to pull the okie doke on me and step away from creating great content and being the best in the tech and all that other stuff. Man, I'm done. I'm not coming back unless I see the recommitment to that again. If Call of Duty's on PlayStation and it's on Xbox, why would I leave PlayStation? Because it's in Game Pass? Because I could rent it? Who cares? I don't want to pay $15 a month for it. I know I'm going to play this game all year until the next one comes out. So why would I pay $15 times 12 so I can play it online, because I'm going to need Ultimate? Why would I pay $15 times 12? What's that, $180? For a $70 game? I'll just buy it over at PlayStation. This deal on its own does not fix Xbox's problems. This new content and these new resources have to be managed in a way that the stellar content and the execution of the tech that really highlights the content are back in the foray, like it was in the 360 days. If you don't do that, then I don't know what to tell you. Let's get back to the chat. It says, look at the petulant outbursts Microsoft leadership exhibited in the public when the CMA frustrated them. If that is the thinnest of skin there, I'd hate to work under them, because behind closed doors would always be worse. Yeah, well, you ain't got to tell me, internet, IOG. I know, bruh. I know. Look. And I think under Satya, because he's trying to drive a square peg in a circle hole with this whole, with positioning them so much and completely changing how games work and driving Game Pass and going away from a la carte sales. We're going to talk about that too. Like, I truly think that the best thing for Xbox right now, you know, we talked about it in what section What section was that? The section 5 recap where we talked about the path to success. The need for content, the need for Microsoft to focus on creating top-notch content. That's what's needed. The balance between subscription services and standalone game sales, and the call for leadership changes, including a shift away from Phil Spencer. Like those to me are the three things that are most dire. Like, you got to ensure that this, like, again, there's reports that Call of Duty is losing millions of players. I know, I'm not saying that X-Defiant is going to take the crown as soon as it releases. Hell, it couldn't even pass certification with PlayStation and Xbox. So that just tells you the buggy mess that they were about to release to you guys, because it's not my type of game. That being said, they could get it together and it could be a potent challenger and a threat. Anything that's a threat to Call of Duty decreases its potency. It makes people wonder, well, hold on, we paid $75 billion for this. Now, granted, the revenue that's being made on mobile alone has a lot to do with it. But hell, if X-Defiant, the main game, starts becoming a household name in the regular gaming sense, then who's to say there's not going to be an X-Defiant mobile? Ubisoft is just in the mobile game like anybody else. Who's to say that there's not an X-Defiant mobile that then has the same effect and digs into the potency of Call of Duty? If that happens, then you really have something to be concerned with, to say, damn, we paid 75. Like, this $75 billion is kind of like an overpayment based upon the domination that the Call of Duty franchise represents. It's not for any other game. This is all based off of Call of Duty. Yeah, don't get me. There's other franchises. There's World of Warcraft. If Call of Duty was not part of Activision Blizzard, number one, they're not paying $75 billion for it. I don't even know if they're paying an eighth of that for it. Number two, I don't even know if they want to buy them. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know if they want to buy them. If there's no Call of Duty. The heart and soul of this deal is called Call of Duty. But with that, Microsoft, again, needs to focus. All these resources they're about to get from ABK, they need to work together and figure out, okay, you guys are the maker of the game, but what can we do? How can we support you to reverse the fortunes of this game losing players? Because we don't want a scenario where gamers are leaving this for X-Defiant, because it's not like they don't have nowhere to go anymore. So let us know what we can do to reverse this trend, because we got to reverse this trend. We paid too much money here. So that means not only creating new top-notch IP, but then that means looking at all of your even already established IP and figuring out definitive ways to make them better, to bring back players, to sell more systemically. Not just hype it up and create a bubble of a buzz, but to systemically say, aha, okay, now you're back. Now I trust you again. I think another thing too is that just the fiscal part of it. all for day and date content. I think that's cool. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if Bethesda themselves, outside of possibly Elder Scrolls 6, I don't think they have another like hit in them, like a genre defining 90 plus Metacritic hit that's, you know, just so astounding that it just gets appraised. I don't think they have that in them. I think they have the ability to make very good games. You know what I'm saying? Games that are substantively good, you know, better than good, that has, you know, a fair amount of critical acclaim, and that are not simply mediocre. I think they can give you some very good experiences, but giving you S tier stuff, I don't think Bethesda does that anymore. I don't think they're capable of that right now. So because they're not, because they don't have that in their pedigree at the moment, I think sending their games to Game Pass is okay. I mean, the next Wolfenstein going day and date to Game Pass, the next Rage going day and date to Game Pass, and so forth. I think that's okay. I think their games are the top-notch games that go day and date in Game Pass, and they make sense there because they're the games that people look at and say, you know what? Because there's so many of these that I normally wouldn't play, these are the games that make me keeping my subscription worth it. Now, that doesn't happen right now, but I think, you know, you let Bethesda keep putting out, you know, Deathloop 2 or whatever, the next Arcane Studios game. You keep letting them put these Bethesda games in Game Pass day and date. I think you start developing a cadence of games that make the platform honest to where people will say, you know what? I'm not just going to indulge in Game Pass for this one game. I'm going to play this game, and then by the time I'm done with that one, Bethesda got another game coming out, and by the time I'm done with that one, I think Bethesda does that for you. They make it worth it. And they minimize people letting the subscription lapse. So letting Bethesda games go day and date into Game Pass, I think makes sense. Because I think opposite of an Elder Scrolls 6, and even possibly could have had it with Starfield, I think when the financials are said and done, I'm of the opinion that this thing would have done better as a la carte sales, maybe coming to Game Pass 3 to 6 months after launch, and being multi-plat. I mean, would gamers still say, oh, you know what, this game is mid, whatever? They probably would have said it, but not after they committed $70 to it, and then Microsoft just says, oh, well, you thought it was mid, so what, you bought it. Into where you don't have possibly 5 million people finessing one-time access to the game, you know, for anywhere between $10 to $15. You got people that have now paid the full retail price of the game. They've committed to the game, so it's theirs. But opposite of games like possibly an Elder Scrolls 6, where even if you keep it exclusive, I get Game Pass as your flagship, but there has to be revenue cushion. There has to be revenue cushion, and having these games on sale a la carte for the first 3 to 6 months is that revenue cushion. And what it does is it creates a system seller type of scenario. Because think about it. I think games are different. That's why when I hear people compare, the practices of Game Pass to other forms of media, I'm like, y'all just don't get it. Y'all don't understand how the gaming market and the gaming consumer works. They don't work like those other markets because the expectations are totally different. I think you're less likely to buy a console for a subscription service. Don't get me wrong. A lot of Xbox's early success was because people said, I'm going to buy a Series S and I'm just going to get it for Game Pass to try Game Pass out. Don't get me wrong, early on. That's when the Series S and the promise of it was a lot more appealing. Because there was it's the 1440p 60 machine. Now the Series S, for those gamers that jumped into Xbox and really got it as a second console, I believe for the most part, I think a lot of those gamers are less likely to get one for a subscription service. Hear me out. I know it sounds crazy because ultimately, if I'm just paying $300 and all I'm doing is paying $10, $15 a month in Game Pass, that's less money out of my pocket to experience Starfield. And it happened at gangbusters at the beginning of the generation. I get that. But here's the vibe that I've gotten from gamers over decades. When something has like a brand new car smell and there's excitement and buzz around it, fine. Yeah, the people are more inclined to try something new. But the Series S has lost its new car smell. And I think now that people look at it differently and quite frankly see it for what it is, they're less inclined for Starfield alone. If you really think about it, for Starfield alone, this console underperforms. I wasn't interested in buying it before, even with Game Pass. I'm only getting it now to try out Starfield. If someone is committed to playing Starfield, they're like, that game speaks to me, so I want to get an Xbox. They're going to buy a PlayStation. They'll buy an Xbox and they'll buy Starfield outright, or, they might take the cheaper route and do it through Game Pass and just finesse it and finish it and go about their business. There are diehards that are like that. But I think for the average gamer that is curious about a game like Starfield, they know they regularly don't want to play on the Xbox ecosystem, but they do want to try Starfield. I think they're less inclined to do it for something that's in a subscription service, or because it cheapens the experience. If I go buy a console for a game, I think a lot of gamers rather be doing it for something a la carte, because then that feels like you getting what you pay for. It's, there's more money invested in it. So therefore, this thing got more oomph to it. Now, what am I saying? Because I know I'm all over the place. What I'm saying is, even if Elder Scrolls 6 is exclusive, which makes perfect sense, it's their content, I wouldn't put it in Game Pass day one. I would wait like 3 months. The first 3 months, you got to buy Elder Scrolls. And then after 3 months, the people that are just the Game Pass aficionados that just are out of the habit of buying games, then they can indulge on it. And that's what I'm thinking that Microsoft should do. Like, Microsoft should look at the launch of a game in two different windows. The first window for their AAA games, for their big AAA games that really have a potential to light it up and be system sellers. I think they're more effective that way when they're purchased a la carte. I know Game Pass subscribers are like, hey, M2K, shut up. But no. I mean, if you want your favorite console maker to survive, they have to make the proper adjustments that keep them active, that are fiscally sound. You don't want them just throwing money away, because that's the likelihood, that increases the likelihood they can't keep doing what you like. You want them to do what's sustainable. So if they got to make adjustments because the previous business model as handled wasn't doing what it needed to do, then they got to make sacrifices, and you got to adhere to those sacrifices if you want to keep getting any form of what you like, because it is a business. So I feel like any AAA game that Microsoft has, that they know there ain't no people leaning on the fence, there's no like, this game is going to do gangbusters and really increase our footprint if sold a la carte. Sell it a la carte for the first 3 months. That's window one. Then window two is the 3-month interval after that, when games normally sunset. After the first 3 months, that's when you normally see a significant drop off in sales with a game. And that's when you normally see games go into subscription service. Start seeing games that don't launch day and date in subscription service. Says you see them go into those subscription services after 3 months, because that's the sunset period. Then they monitor their Game Pass by looking at the sunset period and see how well it does in Game Pass. And this is where I think they should look at it in two windows. For instance, okay, let's say when let's just say, for instance, they got Elder Scrolls 6 and Fable done around the same time. Even though, well, no, that's probably not a good example. Let's just say Hellblade and Fable, prime examples. Let's say if they said, you know what, Hellblade and Fable are S-tier games. We feel like that those are system sellers, and we don't want to cheapen the experience. We're discovering that we're cheapening the system selling capabilities when it's in a subscription service. For, you know, it is better for it to increase our saturation if it's a la carte, at least for a time period. If I'm Microsoft, what I'm doing is I'm saying, let's just say Fable is up. Fable may be up for sale, and I want to put it in Game Pass, but it's okay if I don't put Fable in Game Pass and it's up for sale those first 3 months, because the month that Fable is launching a la carte, Hellblade that launched 3 months before that now is sliding into Game Pass. You see what I'm saying? That's why you break it up in those 3-month intervals. So every time a new game releases a la carte, that is going to be a la carte first, there should be a game of the same ilk now going out of its a la carte phase, going into Game Pass. And that's how you have a steady cadence. If they rework their schedule that way, you still make Game Pass a very potent subscription service that changes the game. But you do so in a way that it doesn't cannibalize your sales significantly. As a matter of fact, for the sales that it does cannibalize, for the few amount of people that would have bought it, maybe 5 times that would be willing to try it out in a subscription service after 3 months. You see what I'm saying? That's how you ensure the front end commitment to your game. If it is a banger, and that's how you still keep Game Pass as a game, it goes beyond its potential of a game-changing subscription service to something that truly is. And you still pepper it with maybe not S tier, but AAA content. You still pepper it with AAA content that's day and date. But your shortified top sellers? Maybe not. And I get where you guys are doing this thing where you're doing the deluxe edition. You can play it 5 days early for $30. That's cool and all, but you're only capturing those people within 5 days. The sunset period for S tier AAA games is 3 months. When you look at an NPD chart, normally those games hang around for a good 3 months before they start sliding off the chart. It's 3 months. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. That's variable, but the average time is 3 months. So you having these deluxe editions for 5 days, you're still cannibalizing your money. I wouldn't look at it as cannibalizing sales. Look at it as cannibalizing your money. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. This is about making money. You just present a different business model that's supposed to change the dynamics of how the money can be made. That's all it is. At the end of the day, you still have to make the money and you still have to make more of it. And talking about how many people logged in or played, you're keeping us at bay with those talks. Because 3 months later or however soon after the quarterly reports come out, that doesn't matter. How much money did you make? After this report came out that you see on the screen, who was talking about, oh, Forza did this and Halo? They didn't talk about that. Forza had 5 million. Nobody cared after that. Once the quarterly reports came out that you see on the screen, everybody was like, failure. All that player numbers, that's just to hold us at bay until them quarterly numbers come out or those annual numbers come out. So we're at a point now to where, let's go over all these sections again. And then we're going to just completely take it to the chat. Xbox had some serious milestones missed. They admitted in court. This is not me hating. Everybody was like, you're so negative on Xbox or whatever. Xbox was negative on themselves in court. That's why they needed ABK. We just highlighted why the negative things happened and said it didn't have to be this way. It could have been different had they just. Now they put themselves in a position to make sure that the bottom doesn't fall out. They need ABK. And it didn't have to be like this. That's all we're saying. Secondly, we talked about Xbox's Activision Blizzard acquisition and where that keeps the bottom from falling out at the very least. We talked about the risk of mishandling Activision Blizzard where that deal doesn't see its potential. And then we talk about the fallout from that. But then we talk about the path to success. with Activision Blizzard. And then we solidified with, because this ain't a podcast about just hate as people want you to believe, because they're upset that you're criticizing the thing that they want to fanboy or fangirl over like nothing's wrong with it. We don't do that here. We're adults. Like I said in the last podcast, I've never seen a group of adults that act so immature in parallel to kids back in the day when we used to talk ish. Oh, you got the Sega Genesis? Well, you ain't got Sonic that does it. We do that, laugh, and then go play all the systems that we were just ragging on. I've never seen such a group of superficially insecure adults that can't take any criticism of anything at all that they like. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing at my chicken McNuggets? Oh, I like them. I like the way they do. Oh, I can't eat these now. Oh, block. Oh, get away from me. Oh, you're toxic. Never seen it. Now, if you're lying, oh yeah, why are you eating them chicken McNuggets? I heard they're made out of roach meat. Well, you're lying, then yeah, okay. Now that's gonna pull me out. But if you're simply just ragging on something that I like because you don't like it, who cares? Shoot fly don't bother me. I'm not concerned with you. But we're just in a time, and unfortunately, this whole societal mess has filtered in the game. We're in a time where people are so insecure about everything. They lack confidence. My nails are too choppy. Oh, the hair on my back is too thin. They complain, and they're so they lack confidence on everything, that they come to the internet every day where people voice their opinion and see a criticism over something they like and they fall apart. And gaming used to be the escape from all that. Now that mindset has infiltrated gaming. So with that said, we've come to the conclusion that in order to see that success, there's some things that Microsoft has to do. Not this only, there's more things they could do, but this has to be part of those portfolio of things to say. Now that they have Activision Blizzard, pretty much everybody at Xbox should be like, now it's go time. And when they say it's go time, they mean we've effed up so bad in the past. Like our predecessors were not as bad as us. We've had more money at our disposal, more resources put into us. Our leadership team has been at the helm longer than any of our predecessors. And as far as our ability to saturate the market, we've done the worst. People look at hear that and say, well, MM2K, how can you say that when Xbox last gen, by the time the gen closed, it's estimated they had around 60 million sales. They had 60 million consoles sold. And the Xbox OG generation, they only had 29 million. You're trying to tell me that an Xbox, that the only thing it had going for it commercially with the mainstream was Halo. There were great games on that platform. They tantalized and were critically acclaimed amongst the hardcore, but they weren't reaching all the gamers that were playing Resident Evil and Final Fantasy and Street Fighter and all that. When those games wouldn't come to Xbox, that meant everything. So you're saying now, you fast forward a decade and a half later, just about, and all you can do is double those numbers? All those games are on your platform that are on PlayStation, opposite of a handful from Square Enix. But the overwhelming majority of multi-plat games are multi-plat because now you've been established during the 360 era that you're a feasible place to put those games on there. So the overwhelming majority of games that come out are multi-plat, right? And it wasn't like that back in the day. The overwhelming majority of games back then were exclusive. And Xbox couldn't get them. So you're telling me a decade and a half later, the best you can do, and I'm particularly talking about the Xbox One generation, is go from 30 million to 60 million. There have been way more successful execs in charge of Xbox that did way more for the platform in making it competitive, that were around for a lot less. But Phil Spencer and his team got to stay on even further. And they're staying on now with more resources, more time than their predecessors, and they're still doing the exact same? You can make all the excuses that you want. It takes time, man. It takes time. It didn't take that much time for everybody else. It takes time. It takes time. When you have people in charge at the CEO level that respects gaming and the culture, when you have someone in your games division that has an eye for great and stellar content, knows how to manage it, it doesn't take this long. Now we know Saatchi ain't going nowhere because of what he's doing across the other business lines. But when it comes to Phil and his team, something has to give. So when I say it's go time, it's time for that team to sit there and say, look, based on what we have now, these are the new milestones, which are, more demanding, but we should be able to do it. And this is when we should do it. And if you can't reach these milestones, you should ask yourself, do you belong here? PlayStation with a lot less across the street are handing our ass to us every day. And I want to hear that crap. Well, they did this and they did that. We said that crap in court to get what we want. Now we got what we want. There are other people that walked in this building that had less resources that I'm giving you, that had less time that we're allotting you, that were able to do so much more. Now is go time. Let's do this or get out. If those conversations are not being had, nothing really changes. All that nice, sweet talk, and well, I really think in my philosophy and Dick, and I think this, Barbara, and screw all that. Now is go time. And if the CEO that was really embedded in the gaming culture and understood what the hell was going on, they would have been cleaned that place up. But Satya Nadella really doesn't have a clue. All he knows is that he wants his business models to make money. He knows where he sees potential at, and he wants his business models to make money via cloud and subscription. That's the bulk of where he goes when it comes to gaming. Yeah, does he get prepped on various game matters and stuff? Sure. But as far as the relation of gaming culture, the results driven atmosphere that they should have, and how much they're failing there, he doesn't have a clue. Why do I say that? The prime example is Phil telling him, we have the better console. And we're really going to pull this out because we got the better console, the better strategy, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Anybody else that is at the leadership level that is embedded in the gaming culture knew that Phil was giving them a bunch of bullpucky. You think this strategy? What? This guy MM2K that steals his wife's credit card, that that converted his attic into an office and yells and screams into his pop filter. He could tell that this strategy was going nowhere. How much did I'm paying? You think this is what's going to defeat Sony? But because Satya doesn't have that lineage, that understanding of the culture, and understanding of the litmuses that define if the person that you put in charge really can do the job, he has to take his lead on a lot of this crap. But now Satya has been doing this. He's been managing Phil. Phil's been telling him things like this long enough, and the end results haven't happened. Now is do or die time. Xbox put so much at risk in fighting for this ABK deal the way that they did. Put so much resources into this. If I'm Satya, I'm like, Phil, I don't want to hear these philosophical emails any longer. This is the milestone. This is the result. Across the street, they're doing it with way less resources. They don't even have the money in the entirety of the company that I'm just giving you. And you are our second lowest source of revenue in this company. No more excuses. We got ABK now. Make it happen, bro, or you got to go. If those are not the conversations that are being had, if Phil still is if Satya is still letting Phil bob and weave and say all this philosophical stuff and feed him all this horse-ish, then nothing's going to change. They will get more revenue attributed to them on paper, and they'll still be losing to PlayStation. They'll still be missing milestones. They'll still be promising things in tech like they've done in cloud console or wherever that just do not land. And they'll still be in last place wherever they're at. And then that whole goal of, well, we're going to take over the gaming industry by 2030 will be will be the comic line for years to come. Something's has to give. I'm so worked up because as a business aficionado myself, I can't believe the lack of I can't believe the lack of competency here and how much it's been tolerated, but I know how it's working. I've seen managers who had to manage something that they didn't understand culturally, really didn't understand how it worked at first. So the wool was being pulled over their eyes whenever expectations weren't met. Well, it's not Susie. Susie's a rule. She seemed like she's a good worker or whatever, where Susie's just incompetent. And really, before the last manager left or whatever, or was terminated or let go or released, partially because Susie wasn't meeting her deliverables, he was on the verge of cutting Susie loose. But thankfully for Susie, now you come in. You gave her some more time. You gave her a buffer to get to, now you got to understand what's going on and get used to this product service line and the culture. But Susie's still not delivering. Satya has been at this since 2013, bro. It's 10 years later. If he hasn't seen enough now to help him understand who could do this and who can't, I don't know what to say for the Xbox business. I just know that it can't keep failing its deliverables. And if I'm Satya, again, I'm looking at that email that's now hitting the airwaves. If I haven't looked at it before, that was released. And I'm pinning that in my wall at my house when it comes to this dude. Because now I had to spend $75 billion for this dude. I mean, I had my own internal reasons why I'm doing it, but I'm expecting this dude to manage it and make this not be a $75 billion bust. I'm doing this for this dude. And a lot of the incentive that I had, which was to try to pull this premier content away from Google and Amazon, that can't even happen. Now I got to let Amazon, and I had to sell the rights to Ubisoft, and Ubisoft is going to license this on Amazon. And hell, they might even, Google might even get a piece of this pie. Why? Because even though I might change how the back-end support works for Google, which that'll be significant, because if y'all don't know, Google Cloud is running the back-end support for Call of Duty right now. There's cloud elements that even in the game that you install natively, for when stuff hits the data and stuff hits the cloud, that's being supported by Google Cloud. Now that's not cloud gaming, so Microsoft can effectively cancel that contract and then go over to Azure and pull all that stuff over to Azure. That and from what I understand, that's a significant business for Google. So that's going to be a hurt piece for them, and that helps out Microsoft in the cloud, because that keeps the gap, that widens the gap rather even further between them being in second place and Google being in third place. So they do get that at least. But they understand that when it comes to cloud gaming activity, that Amazon is killing it. And they were hoping that they could affect it, the cloud pings and stuff like that, by them having Call of Duty, even if they got to share it with other cloud services, as long as they're not sharing it with Amazon. And now, in order for this deal to go through, they had to share with Amazon. So the double spirit effect that I wanted it to have, now I can't have it. So, bro, you got to manage this right. I'm spending $75 billion on your camp, bro. This got to be ultra fruitful. That's it for that. I'm done talking about that. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, IOG. Says MPD on Lock Mars. He says, Starfield is game of the generation. Everybody else wants an Xbox rig. I don't know, man. We'll see. If they don't win NPD, that's a red flag. I'm not going to sit there and say it's over, but that's definitely an avenue as far as turning the tide for Xbox, because they showed you in the chart, they still project that their number one business is going to be console. They want it to be elsewise, but they still project it. And there's nothing that says that projection, there's nothing that they have to offer that changes that projection. There's no games that they have coming out that are going to change that projection for PC gamers. Starfield was the biggest one. There are no there's no technology that we see forthcoming in Xcloud that is going to grow Game Pass on the cloud, as far as cloud only users, as they say. Their biggest shot at this moment is console. They've admitted it themselves. So if they don't win NPD for September, that's a very huge avenue where they didn't succeed at. But that's not it. If we find out that A, they got a crap load of Game Pass subscribers, and B, those Game Pass subscribers are retained for a quarter, then that's okay. Then them not winning NPD is just a missed opportunity. But they still would have executed on the start of that plan. Doesn't mean that the plan is successful. They would have successfully executed on the start of that plan. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. All right, so that's where we're at. We got a couple more topics, and then we're going to close out. But yeah, I mean, that's my passionate response to all this. It's nobody's hating on Xbox. Hating on Xbox is, and you my peoples that are new to this, y'all got to get a little bit more acclimated. Your acumen to this has to be broader than the slang that's being thrown around by zealots and fanboys. Simply put, you got to be smarter than this. I know all over Twitter, fellow people that like Xbox, like maybe you do, you're a hater. You're doing this, you're doing that. You're just a hater. You're a pony. I know that's the slang. And now that you may be a newfound Xbox enthusiast, that you're like, oh, okay, well, this is how it must have been. So yeah, that's all this is. So I'm just going to adopt that. You have to be smarter than that. You got to learn how to look past surface level activity. If you don't, you're just going to be floating in a pool of idiocy with the rest of them. There are a legion of gamers who don't want Xbox to fail. They want Xbox to succeed. I personally feel like we need Xbox to succeed. Why? Because even though I prefer PlayStation right now, I only prefer them because Xbox ain't doing what it used to do. That's the only reason why I'm giving them any attention. And then upon them not doing what they used to do and me being forced to, let's see what's going on over here. They started and they answered the call. Because I'll tell you, Cold Blood might not like this. I don't give a damn. PlayStation gaming sucked. I'm sorry. As an Xbox enthusiast that came in with the OG Xbox, PlayStation gaming sucked. It only was a necessity because, it was only a necessity for me mainly because of the RPGs that were on there. That was only good that the Xbox game served me. I mean, the PlayStation game served me. Was having this PlayStation system was RPGs. That's all. I had every PlayStation, but it was only for the RPGs. Hold on one second. And I still have all my OG PlayStation 1 games. Lunar 2, Ark the Lad, Wild Arms. I'm turning looking at them right now. I got a crap load of them. Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy collection, where they gave you 4, 5, and 6. Oh man, you can't beat that with a stick. So many other ones. They're in boxes in my closet and stuff now because there's too many of them to fit on my game shelf back here. But PlayStation gaming sucked. It sucked. The only thing, it wasn't innovative. Like the only thing that you were getting with PlayStation games is you was getting more graphics. You were getting better, with every new console generation, you're always getting better graphics. Whoop-diddly do. But there was nothing really innovative, really, between the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 outside of graphics. Now, online was becoming a thing, but their approach to online was so lackadaisical with the PlayStation 2, and it was so cumbersome in comparison to what Xbox was doing and the forward-thinking way that even Dreamcast, the way the Dreamcast handled it. The only thing that made PlayStation a necessity was the fact that when the big game developers made games, they made them for PlayStation only or primarily. So you had to get them. All the biggest games were there. So that's what made the PlayStation 2 the necessity. That's why by the time the 360 came out and all those games started coming to Xbox, there were only little spurts where I had the PlayStation 3, and most of the time it was a media server. And then I looked at it, and then it was like a slew of badass games coming out or something. And I was like, you know what? This PlayStation 3 is collecting dust. Let me sell this damn thing. You know what I'm saying? So up until the PlayStation 3, and I would say even for me, up until the first half of the PlayStation 4 generation, PlayStation gaming sucked. But something happened. Sean Layton talked about it. They had to solidify that they regained the trust of the players that they lost. And once they solidified that, they went back to their Japanese developers and said, you can stop making phone games now. You can come back to console. Because, the Japanese game developers, for lack of a better term, and excuse me, I don't mean anything by this, but they're nativists. They'll only deal with other Japanese companies. And a lot of them would rather just do something completely different opposed to work with Microsoft, right? That's why Microsoft currently is having a hard problem getting a lot of those Japanese games, because there's a lot of backbending that you gotta do to court Japanese content. Oh, hold on. Okay, sorry about that. We got a lot of stuff going on. Okay, so with that said, yeah. Where we at now? We're at the 2.5 hour mark. Microsoft App Store on OS and Android to settle this antitrust cases out is a meaningful value addition in this acquisition. I know the major markets for Starfield are far more religious and spiritual than the UK, but man, Starfield is a trope feed of religiosity and metaphysics. Almost like Microsoft production values are written all the way through it. The Christian nationalists and NRA went a long way in this one. He says, I agree with holding the jewels back, but I'm not sure they want people to attribute value to the console. I think they are now into the phase of attributing value to gaming. No, I'm not. When I say there needs to be a time period, IOG, that they don't make things exclusive to Game Pass, it's not just for the console. I mean, their own business model, they may want to be able to walk on water, but they ain't doing it. Or they ain't doing it no time soon. Right? So even though you got this lofty idea to walk on water, every day that passes where you're not getting closer to that goal, it's becoming evident, then you need a backup plan. And the backup plan and holding back the games for 3 months just isn't to suffice console sales. It's to, in tandem, understand that you may not ever be able to do this. So you're still feeding console sales, whether the console sales are your main endpoint or not. But more importantly, you're getting direct full sale related to your game. So instead of you make a game, IOG, to where you dump $500 million into to make this game, and retail wise it's worth $70, but because you put a day and date in subscription, I could play that game for $15, let my subscription lapse, and go about my business. That is spillage of revenue that occurs when you put your games day and date. You've crossed paths of the business model to where you want a subscription interaction with me, where I keep your service. Like, for instance, Netflix doesn't work if I only watch Stranger Things and then I let my subscription lapse. Right? Netflix doesn't work that way. Netflix works when, because of Stranger Things, I go get Netflix and I keep it. But here's the problem with moviegoers and games. The atypical TV watcher or movie watcher consumes a lot of TV and movies. The average gamer does not consume a lot of games regularly. So what that does is, that means that the incentive to keep me on that subscription service is lessened when you're only using one particular game to bring me there. What I do then is I watch that one particular game, or I played, that one particular game, and then I go about my business. And instead of me paying $70 to enjoy the experience, I now only got to pay $15. So that's a lot of exposure to a game that's being cannibalized because I'm using the subscription service as I'm using it out of context. Instead of me retaining the subscription service and checking out other content, I'm just using it for that one specific game. That's where I think the subscription service is harmful, and it works in the detriment of particularly AAA games. If you sit there and do this, if you have a subscription service full of indie games, it's not as harmful because indie games are cheaper. They are around that. I mean, you're still cannibalizing sales or cannibalizing revenue because I still got to pay for the other 200 games in there. So in order for me to pay for those games, it would help if you would stay on for at least a year. But the effects are less dire. When I have a $70 game and a bunch of them in my service that cost $500 million to make, create, and market, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. There's always. When you have a situation where a gamer who generally doesn't consume a lot of content and doesn't desire to, that's the thing. It would be different if the average gamer desired to consume a lot of content. But the average gamer doesn't need to consume a lot of content in order to enjoy their gaming experience. They have their one game that's the experience is dynamic. Even though they're running in the same place, each time you do a match, it's a different experience. So they may be getting the same setting, but because it's interactive, the experience is dynamic. That's good enough for them. So I only need that one game or that one game every 6 months. 7 games total through a whole life cycle. The average TV watcher may watch 7 shows in a week. This is why the gaming subscription model cannot be directly aligned with the Netflix even the Netflix TV model is having trouble. And people consume a lot of TV. Gamers, the average gamer does not consume a lot of games. So if you're going to have this subscription service, you're going to have to, do one or two things. You're going to have to limit the entry of games in it and when it comes, or you're going to have to increase the price of entry. That's what people don't get about this. It's different. We're looking at it because we play a lot of games. The average gamer doesn't do that. The average gamer only plays 2 games a month. Where you might have the average TV watcher, they might watch 2 whole seasons a week. That makes sense. So if you're going to have a subscription service for TV that's $10.99, you can't have the same subscription service operate the same for games. Because people aren't consuming as much games as people are consuming TV. They may be consuming the same amount of hours, but they're doing it with less content. This is why the gaming subscription model is in peril if it's utilized the same way as the TV model is. What has to happen is, again, either the price has to go up and or the games have to become limited as far as when they go into the model. Now, granted, you have gamers, hardcore gamers that love Game Pass, that want to play a lot of games, that cringe when they hear this and they're upset at me saying this because it works for them. What we have to realize, and this is where I say gamers like us, we have to be smarter. We can't fall for the, oh, you're just a pony. We have to understand that we are the minority of gamers. The minority of gamers game as frequently as we do. The average gamer only plays 2 games a month. I mean, they play 2 games a year. Not even 2. The average gamer only plays about 2 games a year. They purchase 2 games a year. And they only have about 7 games in their library every year. I mean, for an entire generation. Now, it's great that Call of Duty is being added to a subscription service. You're halfway there. But if I'm the gamer that only spends $140 now a year, I'm looking at that subscription service and I'm saying, okay, for $180 a year, $40 more than what I would typically spend, you're giving me one game that I'm going to play, but then you're giving me a bunch of other games that I don't really care about. And I still got to go buy my second game that isn't part of your subscription service. The only way that a subscription service like this works for a mainstream gamer is if all of the top 10 purchased games are in said subscription service all at the same time. FIFA, Madden, 2K, right? And and Call of Duty. All of those top 10 paid for games that come out every year, the top 10 of them, paid for games every year. You would even I would throw a Rainbow Six Siege in there because you got to pay for Rainbow Six Siege. There's other games. Those games have to be in there. If those games are in there, then you're talking. Then my $15, $16 a month makes some sense. Because even though you're charging me over time $40 more than I'm used to, I now have access to the 2 games that I play every year, and potentially there's some other big hits out of the top 10 that are groomed for people within my category that I really don't want to invest in because my time is pretty much dedicated to these games. But you know what? Now I can give it a try. That's the subscription model that's for the average gamer. The subscription model let's do it like this. I'm gonna help you out with this one, especially if I'm an Xbox gamer. We're gonna go to 2 places: Xbox most played. All right, we're gonna go to the most played games for Xbox, right? Okay, so these are the most played games for Xbox, and then price. No, not less than $5. $50+. Okay, so if there's a subscription service that has 2K, Starfield, Mortal Kombat, Madden, Lies of P, Elden Ring, hell, even 2K23, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, that's it. They only sell it showing you the top. Okay. So if I'm having a subscription service, those 8 games would have to be in the top 10. And then with those 8 games being in the top 10, I would then it would make sense for these games to be like, me as a mainstream gamer, it would make sense for me to say, oh, okay, all right, now I'm gonna get this service. Now, granted, Microsoft has 1, 2, 3 games out of their top 10 paid for games in here. That's only a third. And this game right here is variable. This is new. It's variable. You understand? That's why people don't, this subscription model is built for gamers that play a lot of games. Gamers that play a lot of games, yeah, they love Game Pass and they're flocking to it. That's not what makes PlayStation successful. That's not what makes Nintendo successful. What makes those platforms successful is their ability to take on gamers that don't play a lot of games too. Their ability to suck in both types of gamers is what makes them successful. So if Game Pass is going to be your main subscription model, you need to come up with a tier called Popular Elite, popular, whatever, that has these 10 top 10 games in it, and you charge $15 for just those top 10 games. You do that, there you go. Then you have something that has the potential of tapping into the mainstream. But having a subscription service that merely has a bunch of games in it, that's not going to tap into the average gamer. And that's why we're bringing this up, because it's now what you're doing is when you create this dynamic to where now people can just go and interact with the AAA game because you offered them a bunch of money. They can go and interact with the AAA game in your subscription service. Every single game in your subscription service, they could just interact with for $15. If that becomes the norm, that's not sustainable for everybody. It's not even sustainable for you, and you have the money right now to do it. It's not even sustainable for you long term. So if that becomes the norm, which is a lot of people's concerns, if that becomes the norm, then we're going to definitely see the quality of games go down and down and down and down and down. I think that the gamer is going to fight against that, and they're going to, as they are now, and they're going to ensure that doesn't even become a possibility. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. My concern is strictly to Microsoft in the feasibility of their business model as it's established now. It requires mainstream gamer adoption. Yes, if your games become part of that top 10, were generally across the board. And let me do something else. Let's go to a PlayStation. Let me see most played games. Let's do this. All right. So Tom Clancy's Siege, Grand Theft Auto 5, Rocket League. Do you pay for Rocket League? I think Rocket League is free to play. Baldur's Gate 3 is okay. So if I have a subscription service, there are going to be like there's going to be 7 static games, and then I'm going to have a rotating 3 that crack the top 10. So then, and that would be Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, Grand Theft Auto 5, Baldur's Gate 3 will be part of that rotating game because it's going to be popular for a while, but then 4 months down the road or so, it might lose its popularity, and then something else will come in. FIFA, I would say Minecraft, but Minecraft is an Xbox thing. You probably have to pay pay $1 billion to get that in there. Minecraft, FIFA, Dead by Daylight, Call of Duty. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 4 more. Genshin Impact is free to play. Overwatch, 7, 8, 9, Saints Row. Oh, that's interesting. And 10. And that's okay. So your 3, I don't know what your 3 would be. Excuse me. That's 3 games. I mean, that's 10 games. 7 or 8 of them in this case would be static. The other 2, which is Saints Row, definitely Saints Row. But I think Saints Row's in there because it's part of PlayStation Plus. But see, it's desired because it's in the subscription model. But you would have to have 8 solid top 10 paid games in there. That's what you would have to have. There needs to be a subscription model that just focuses on the top 10 for a particular month. And then it rotates the games, like every month. It rotates 3 games every month. So there you have it. There you have it. So that's the problem. The platform has to adopt a subscription model that is suited for casual gamers, because that's who they need, or the average gamer rather, because those are the gamers that make up the bulk of gaming. Those are the gamers that determine whether you have success or not. Those are the gamers that left the PlayStation 2 for the Xbox 360 and then went back to PlayStation during the Xbox One. You know what I mean? So if you have a business model that is indicative of their activity, then you have to have the content that speaks to them. And to me, the safest bet is a subscription service with just 10 games in it, because again, that gamer does not play a bunch of games. They only play 2 a year. They only have 7 in their catalog, 7 to 9 in their catalog for an entire generation. So if you give them a subscription service with the top 10 games in it, 7 that'll always be in there, because they're always there. They're in the top 7 every year. And then you have 3 that rotate in and out. And that's fine, because these gamers, they don't jump into a bunch of stuff. They're interested to see what the flavor of the month is, and then they'll jump into that game. But if you have those 3 types of games in there every month, you go look at NPD, look at what are the top 3 variable games, and then throw them in there. You will have a subscription service that speaks to the average gamer. Then you will see success. Now, in Xbox's case, it helps that they have Call of Duty. But you need at least 6 other games, a Madden, like a NBA 2K, Elden Ring, games that are going to be at the top 10 systemically. You need 6 other games like that and 3 more variables for you to have a subscription service that is going to be successful. And granted, I know it's going to cost you a lot of money to do that, but if you market it right, you in turn will get a lot of people in there that'll make it worth it. And then they'll keep it. But the way Game Pass is designed right now, the average gamer, I was talking to my boy, and he looked in there and he said, I don't recognize any of these games. I don't care about these games. Do you think just having Call of Duty in there then changes the whole dynamic? No, I could just go buy Call of Duty. Because you're not paying for anything. You're not playing anything else. So that game was going to say, I could just buy Call of Duty outright. 15 goes into 70, 4 times? Is that right? Yeah, 4 times. Almost 5 times. So with that said, I don't think fully relying on Game Pass is the way to go. I think the best thing to do is, like we said prior in the recap, just make top-notch content and make a staple, make it like a hybrid, make it Game Pass subscriptions for those that indulge a lot of games, but then have a firm business model of a la carte purchases. Because that's a proven methodology. I don't think you have a business strategy. I know you say it's optional, but when you invest so much in the Game Pass, that becomes your flagship. I don't think Game Pass is worthy as designed to be a flagship. Not unless you're going to do the type of subscription service where I said that it is more geared towards the average gamer. If you're going to keep, Game Pass as the way that it is, where you're putting a whole bunch of games, including the games that you curate in there, then your flagship has to be a high, like Game Pass wouldn't be my flagship. Game Pass would be like the special cuisine on the entree, on the entree list. Game Pass would be, systemic to the brand because we want to provide value, but it wouldn't be my flagship. So the balance between the subscription service and the standalone game sales, that's key. And as soon as they take care of that, I think they'll see a lot better results. Last comment I'll take and then I'm out of here. It says, they could actually do lease purchase, sub for 15 months in a row and receive a digital copy of Hellblade to keep next month. BioShock next month, Yeah. They kind of already do that, but they don't give you the extra, like you could go and you can get 12 months of Game Pass and stuff like that. It says receive a free digital copy of Hellblade to keep. Next month, BioShock. Next month, AC Black Flag, and so on, to make the subscription graspable for other players who value ownership. Nothing lost. Player has paid twice anyway. Yeah, I don't think the average gamer would go for that, because they're going to do the math. IOG, they're going to do the math. They're going to say, like you said, I'm paying twice. Like the average gamer is going to split out the cost. Like I just gave in a scenario where, all right, I'm paying $15 a month. That's $180 a year. I normally only buy 2 games. So why would I get a subscription service that only has 1 game that I will play, Call of Duty? You know what I'm saying? No. What they would do though, is if you have both of the games that I'm playing, all right, for an extra $40 spread over time, you're giving me access to these other games that I've always been interested in. They fit my demographic. But I wasn't willing to shell out $70 for them. For an additional $40. This is how you sell this. You know, when you do the math, I can see the commercial right now. When you do the math, for, you know, the $140 that you spend, you get those games. And for an extra $40 a year, you get access to 8 more that you always wanted to play, but up front you weren't really willing to pay. You see what I'm saying? Now you're selling it to where, okay, I am getting the games that I would pay the $140 for, but for an extra $40, I'm getting access to all these games that I was really interested in, but I would never buy outright. Just buying one of those extra games would be $70. But now I get to test out all of them for only $40 extra a year. That's where you have a winning formula that is for the average gamer. To me, it's a win-win. Or subscribe now for 12 months and receive the free digital copy of a Microsoft Studios game of your choice. Yeah, they kind of already do that, but they don't give you the free game. They don't give the game free to you. I mean, and I see where that would be enticing, but again, the problem is to connect with the average gamer, where I got to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think you disagree with me, IOG. The average gamer doesn't care about the Microsoft games. They just don't. The average gamer, and if we look at it, the average gamer in totality, they don't even buy the PlayStation games. Here's what the PlayStation games do, though, psychologically. Because they're critically acclaimed, because the most hardcore, staunchest enthusiasts in the culture buy them, laud them, and buy them, love them, and talk about them. What that says to that gamer is, this is the premier system. This is where I want to play Call of Duty. Because they make the best game. When people go buy tech, right? They want to buy the best. Like, for instance, if I go buy a TV, I might, if I want a TV, I might just be looking for a 4K TV. But if I see everybody buying this TV that I'm looking at because it has HDR10 and you can do this and do that, a lot of stuff that I don't care about, nor will I ever use, I'm saying that just sends a perception thing to me that, this must be top quality in the TV department. This is where I'm going to watch my TV. You can watch the football game or the soccer game, whatever, on any TV, but because that's advertised as the best, this is where I'm going to watch it, because this is the best I can get. The same applies when it comes to the purchasing of video game technology. Why? Because even though their main concern is playing Call of Duty, Madden, 2K, FIFA, they want to know that they're making this investment in the best machine to play it. And so if you're hearing, oh yeah, PlayStation is outselling this and that, and then PlayStation themselves make this game or that game, that tells you as the casual game consumer, well, this must be the best box. It got the best entertaining games, as people are saying. People are flocking to it, so it must be the best built, the best design, all that other stuff. So I'm going to go to this one, because this is the best option to play Call of Duty. Because this is the one so that's where casual markets correlate. I think when it comes to gaming and what Xbox is looking to do, they're making casual market correlations in the wrong places. They're correlating a subscription service for a game, in comparison to a subscription service for TV. You can't do that, because the average gamer doesn't consume a lot of games, where the average TV consumer consumes a lot of TV. So you gotta have a service that has a lot of content, a lot of new content. You can entice a TV consumer with just one good show. You can't do that with a gamer. You have to have access to everything, those two games that they play, for them to even entice it, because they're crunching the numbers. I'll only buy two games. These two games are $70 a pop. Why would I pay upwards of $180 a year for this service if it only has one game that I play, and I still got to come out of $70 for the other game that I want to play? No, I'm not getting into it. Even if you have both games, and you don't have any games that really fit their demographic, that are not part of the top 10, then what happens again? Okay, that's cool. You have both games, but I could just buy this game outright, because I normally have the $70 to buy it at the beginning of the year, and then buy my second game at the end of the year. And I'm saving myself $40. Why would I pay an extra $40 just to pay this over time? I'm not that hard pressed for my two games. I already have them allotted. I've been doing this for years, right? But the thing that brings them in is if, okay, you're still asking them to pay that additional $40 over a year's time, but now you have within that subscription service 8 other games that they've heard of, that they're familiar with, and that are enticing to them. You're not overwhelming them with 200 games they know nothing about, because they don't sit there and buy the gamer magazines, or what. They don't do any of that stuff. You're not overwhelming them. You just have 10 games that are familiar to them, but they're only willing to invest fiscally in 2. But when you have a subscription service, when they're breaking it up, you give them the 2 games, but you give them 8 more that they recognize. They're not speaking to the fiscal actions and habits of the average gamer. That's where Game Pass is missing the mark. They don't understand that. And I get where a lot of you that play a lot of games are like, oh, but we like, they can still do what they're doing with y'all. That's fine. But what they need is average gamer consumption in Game Pass. And if they're not getting that, then everything's dead in the water. We've already seen it. What did we say? Let's go back to it. Microsoft Game Pass figures fall short of targets. Therefore, they changed they're doing it already. And that's why we're putting out there, not because we're hating on Xbox. Like I said, with PlayStation, you have a company. See, I don't believe all this bullpucky, and I know, but let me put it like this. I know firsthand. I don't know exactly what, but I've heard from multiple sources, fans of Xbox, fans of PlayStation, developers that are neutral, people that have talked to PlayStation, that have seen what's coming down the pike, And they know. That's why a lot of people in the industry were bewildered at that showcase because of how much they didn't show. That's the truth. So when people sit there and say, oh, PlayStation has nothing, no, they've accurately planned out their games. They're going to show them when they want to show them. That's not a good proposal for us gamers because we like to know in advance what's coming down the pike. It's always been part of the culture. But here's what happens. You now have a PlayStation that, opposed to giving any fanfare at all, they're so consumed about outshining Xbox and sticking it to Xbox, they're doing it at the detriment of fanfare to their gamers. So they don't show nothing until they have to. Until they have to. Everything is so strategic with them that numero uno, even above fanfare, is strategically sticking it to Xbox. So because we have a PlayStation like that, we really do need an Xbox that is doing better, but doing better in a justified fashion, meaning because they're giving us better content, not just because people just want to root for the underdog. They're doing it because we're getting better stuff. We're getting more innovative stuff that hits its targets. When you say that you're going to be best in class in cloud, you're best in class in cloud. When you say you're revamping your PC store to be you're the best out there, that where everything you go into, you're of the best. People aren't just going, oh, that sucks. That's from Microsoft. And when you put a game of the generation out there, it truly generally feels like the game of the generation to the two gamers in unison. But because you're not delivering on that, then PlayStation can just say, you know what? All we're going to do is operate in a way where we're keeping our foot on the necks of Microsoft. That's all they want to do. No showcases with any substance. I mean, I liked the last State of Play because it was more concise and it showed better gameplay. And now it's more effective that we're seeing that gameplay right when these games are about to release. And honestly, right on the hill, the game show, the showcase came at a perfect time. Why? Because even though there are a lot of fanboys and fangirls out there that want to weigh their 2 cents in on who's going to win and all this other stuff, right, and have their agendas, there was a lot of hype behind Starfield. And a lot of people was anticipating that Starfield could possibly be the game of the generation and suck all the oxygen out of the room and actually fulfill their time. And all these people that swarmed to Starfield because of that hype got a hold of it and didn't feel that way. So now they're like, well, that was disappointing. It was okay, but it wasn't what it was. I'm disappointed. I'm actually a little saddened by that. So now they're ready to move on to the next thing. You can see it via Steam. Now, I get it. You got a lot of Game Pass people that are dedicated to playing games on Game Pass, and Starfield's still ripping it up there. That's fine. Cool, whatever. But I think for the average consumer that fell for that hype, they were like, it's good. But man, as far as the experience of a lifetime, man, am I disappointed. What's next? PlayStation drops that State of Play, reminds us what's coming for them early in 2024, and shows more in-depth gameplay. That was the perfect pitch and the perfect tone, even though it was basically a regurgitation of what we've already seen. But it was repurposed perfectly. But with that said, it's still the overall PlayStation communication to its user base is lackluster. And I'm putting it nicely. It's lackluster. I know from very credible sources. Look, let me give you an example. During my tenure of reporting on Stadia, I've talked to developers and people that under any normal capacity for any other major platform, they wouldn't have given me the time of day. But because our names were so synonymous as far as content creation was concerned with the platform, oh, I know you. You're the Stadia dude. You're the Stadia dude out here on Twitter. Oh yeah, I'll rap to you. Some on the record. I mean, nobody told me what I'm about to say on the record, but some people who've had the same thing to share with me, I've talked to on the record. Some you've never known that I've ever talked to ever. A good number of these people have told me, hey, yo, I know our original conversation is based on Stadia, but man, I'm gonna tell you what really got me excited, if you don't mind. Sure. What is it? I just got to talk to somebody about it, but keep this under wraps. Oh, sure. You got it, man. PlayStation got some crazy stuff coming. What? Man, I was at this event, that event, here, there, wherever. PlayStation got some stuff coming, G. What? For real? Yeah, I really like you. I trust you. That's all I can say. Man. On multiple occasions, people have said that to me. These people have no connection to each other whatsoever. So off of that alone, and when the state of play or whatever you call that dropped earlier this year, I had multiple people reach out to me and say, yo, I know we talked about such a, but bruh, what are they doing? They held back so much. I thought that they were going to release this and talk about this, and what's going on? Then they went and, did some research. Oh yeah, they're just holding off on that stuff, man. I don't know why they're doing it, but they're holding off on it. So based off of that alone, I'm not going to sit here and be one of those content creators and tell you, oh yeah, next week, look out for this. I don't know when they're going to show it. All I know is from various sources, not connected to each other. Hell, even sources that told me that Xbox is their favorite place to play, have all of them have said to me that have brought this up. PlayStation got some stuff coming. They just ain't showing their cards at all. Now, if you're those developers that saw it and you get to develop for this console and you know the promise of the saturation because this stuff is coming, oh, that's going to excite you. If you're PlayStation, that's going to excite you. I'm a gamer. That's not doing nothing for me. I can't play that. I can't connect an HDMI cord to that. I need to know what's coming. That's what invigorates and excites me. As a content creator, it does that as well. But as a gamer, knowing what's coming down the pike has always been part of the culture. But PlayStation has set the precedent to where, and unfortunately, we had a lot of gamers that even told you, they ain't got to say nothing. What? When do we start doing that? But they've set the precedent, they've gotten away with it so much because they've easily had their foot on Xbox's neck. Something needs to change. I hope something changes. So with that, what I'm trying to say is this is not hate. This is a plea. Xbox, please do better. And it's so evident. Here's how you can do better. Y'all did this before. It's not hate, it's a plea. Get y'all heads out of this dumb rhetoric, out of the rumps of the dumb rhetoric throwers. Get with the game. Y'all got to be smarter than this. Period. All right. With that said, that's it. Cold Blood Sensei says no. I want the cheapest, always if possible. He says I'm a connoisseur phenom, and obviously the Halo effect, not the game Halo, just shape of the PlayStation 5 tells you everything you need to know about the culture at Sony. All right, y'all. I had more, but we're gonna cut it out. 'Cause I gotta go. I'm over 3 hours here. I was supposed to game stream. I'm not streaming today. I'll stream tomorrow. With that said, I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. I'll probably do another like open mic or something like that and talk about this Xbox and its future, gaming future. Let me see. Gaming future. Now, CMA seems to support ABK. Let's call it that. Xbox and its gaming future now that CMA seems to support ABK. That's what we're going to call this. That's what it is. Therefore, I'm done. With that said, I've talked long enough. Appreciate all of y'all. Till next time, have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day. Peace.